Alrighty, so news of the week episode on this Thursday afternoon. And before we begin talk about some of the news, just a reminder, we have officially hit the June international break, which means that unfortunately we're gonna have some teams that's gonna have to play during the international break. Although the good news about this match week during the international break is that there's only gonna be 6 games that's gonna be happening, and pretty much half of the league gets to avoid playing during international break. But the bad news is that I think there's going to be a midweek action after this match week, and I'm not sure if the international break is going to be done by the time the midweek action happens. So pretty much every team will have to suffer through it, though some teams are going to have to suffer through it twice instead of just once during this international break. And again, we're going to have people that's going to ignite the discussion of MLS should not be playing MLS regular season game during international break. But just for the sake of the fact that it has nothing to do with this video, and I'm gonna go on just a 10-minute rambling in terms of talking about the debate of MLS game during an international break. Let's actually not get into that discussion, at least not today. But one thing that I also want to remind is that we are going to be having USA versus Mexico. At the time of this recording, the game probably have already started, or at least close to being started. So I'm going to be doing the review of this game later tonight. The winner of this game is going to be playing in the final, and the first semifinal between Panama and Canada is actually happening right now as we speak. Last time I checked, Canada is leading 1-0 against Panama, and I'll tell you, I don't mind seeing a USA versus Canada kind of final, because I know, obviously, CONCACAF ideally they wish that they would have another US versus Mexico CONCACAF Nations League final, but I feel like with the way that Canada has been an up and rising national team in the CONCACAF region, I would not mind seeing a US versus Canada kind of matchup, and that maybe could be a little bit of a new rivalry in terms of it send in there. I mean, I know it's a big rivalry in hockey, but who say it can't happen in soccer too? And especially with me covering MLS, I know most of the viewers are from the US and even some from Canada. Could be an interesting discussion when I do the review talk about US versus Canada in the CONCACAF Nations League final, and that of course is if the US can't beat Mexico later tonight. But yeah, should be interesting to see how this game, of course, would turn out. But now, moving on in terms of the next news, is that there's still no word on Messi contract news. So, the news are pretty much still the same. They're still working on it. And what is also no new news is the fact that, there's been talks of Inter Miami getting Messi former teammates such as Busquets, Suarez, Alba, and more. Now, what's interesting is that, I have heard some people have said that, feel like this might be the time where MLS might be changed their roster rule and the salary cap rule, because I remember when we see this kind of monumentous moment happen with David Beckham back in 2007, we had the introduction of the designated player rule, and I feel like this, with the way that Messi coming into MLS, it is definitely a watershed moment in this league. And why not have a watershed moment by kind of revise the roster, the rules? I mean, I feel like it is pretty clear that MLS got to do something with the roster rules. Like for many years, teams have been begging for MLS to expand the roster rule, and in some way they kind of have done so. But again, under the new CBA, even with the expand that on the salary cap, it just still feels like, well, actually the salary cap is not the issue. It's just the roster rule and the limited amount of players on the team. I feel like it should be expanded, especially with the way that nowadays we have situation with teams being in the CONCACAF Champions League, being in MLS, and also League Cup competition happening in the future. You just got a sense that they got to change something about that. That's just way too much many games in terms of these players have to endure doing the current roster rules. So it should be interesting to see whether or not if the league is going to be thinking about changing that, and maybe make a little bit of an adjustment in terms of the CBA. I mean, I know the CBA obviously is in effect right now, but I think there is a way that they can, of course, change it, and that if you're watching this, Don Gabbard, the commissioner, I mean, do it now. I mean, this might be the moment for you to really continue the growth of this league, and just also not hold back in terms of one of the biggest criticism of MLS, which is of course the small salary cap, and also the limited roster spot that each of these team can only have. Now, speaking of Messi, there is now reports saying that Miami could actually play some game at Hard Rock Stadium amidst Messi signing. Now, this is not a big surprise because Drive Pink Stadium, it's one of the smallest stadium in the league. In fact, I think it is the smallest stadium in the league. It's tied with PayPal Park as the smallest capacity at 18,000 fans. Now, they have said that they are going to close the corners and they're going to raise the capacity to up to 22,000, but still, that's not enough. Like that's clearly not enough. The tickets prices are just incredibly expensive now. Ever since the reports that Messi has committed to play with Inter Miami, and that I can understand why they decided to move it to Hard Rock Stadium because you can easily have 40,000 or 50,000 fans watching Messi play on any given days. And I also won't be surprised. We see other teams around the league might be thinking about do the same thing. Especially, I mentioned before where if Inter Miami is going to be playing against the San Jose Earthquakes, don't be surprised if the game is going to be moved to Levi Stadium. I mean, we saw it earlier this year when they play against LAFC and that and just to kind of continue to this being kind of a marquee kind of rivalry between NorCal and SoCal. They decided to move that one to Levi Stadium, and it was a big draw. 45,000 attended that one, and I won't be surprised it could be the same amount or even more if the Quakes are going to be playing against Inter Miami at home. So yeah, I think this is not just Miami thinking about moving to an NFL stadium just to have bigger capacity, but we might see other teams do so because again, I won't be surprised, especially with some teams that have already have are playing kind of like at multi-purpose stadium and playing at NFL stadium. Don't be surprised if Inter Miami visit Atlanta United. Mercedes-Benz Stadium is going to be open full bowl. I mean, it has to be. Don't be surprised. There's going to be 70,000 strong that's going to be inside it, and it's the same case if Inter Miami play against Charlotte. Don't be surprised they might think about playing at Bank of America's stadium where they open the entire stands and have 70,000. And even if they play against Nashville too, don't be surprised. I know they play at Geodis Park, but don't be surprised they might move back to Nissan Stadium just for that specific occasion. Now, FC Cincinnati has acquired Aaron Bubizenza on a DP contract. Now, this is not news because we talked about this before, but this is just kind of make it official that he of course have now joined Cincinnati on a DP contract, and I mentioned this is clearly a replacement for Brenner. So yeah, we'll see how he's going to do. I mean, anytime when you decide to sign a guy that he has had success in the Saudi league, but this is the Saudi league. This is not like a well known league somewhere else, and that they hope that it's going to work out just as well as when they of course got Brenner. But also just a reminder that the last time we've seen a Gabonese player comes to MLS, the guy is called Dennis Bwanga. It turns out he was very good for LAFC, and that it's pretty clear that he was desperately miss in the last game when LAFC take on Houston in the last one. Now, the New England Revolution have exercised a buyout option of Josie Altidore. Now, I was kind of thinking that this was a possibility, especially with Bobby Wood now back healthy, and that it feels like Josie Altidore doesn't really have a spot left for the Revs. And this feels like it was just a kind of a temporary solution where once Bobby Wood does come back, Josie Altidore is probably gonna have giving no minutes for this Rev team. However, this could be interesting to see now whether or not if other MLS team is going to give Josie Outdoor a chance. I mean, Josie Outdoor, he is a definition of a guy that just kind of hit the wrong end of 30. Like once he turned 30 years old, he just completely fall off a cliff, and now to a point where he's getting to that point where I won't be surprised he might be even thinking about retirement sooner or later. Though again, I feel like he still feel like he still have enough tank to get, get another MLS team a chances to for him to play. I mean, I know there's already talk of the fact that yeah, it seems like the Galaxy is going to be that team that could get Josie Altidore, especially with the recent injury with Chicharito. But I won't be surprised other teams that desperately need a number 9 might look into Josie Altidore. I mean, Josie Altidore is not the same as he was doing his prime a couple of years ago, but he's still a good utility pieces and could be a guy that if a team that is that desperate in terms of looking for a number 9, don't be surprised could still be picked up. But yeah, what a huge fall from grace that is Josie Altidore, a guy that at the peak of his power, you talk about a guy that was a lethal goal scorer in MLS, but also considered for one of the more important player on the U.S. men's national team. Like him, alongside with Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan, oh, those were some golden era in terms of U.S. men's national team attacker just a couple of years ago. I mean, not that obviously the U.S. don't also have some good attacking talent too. I mean, this next generation attacking talent is definitely decent as well. But what is kind of missing is that number 9 position. And again, the U.S. I just feel like they still have not found a true number 9 replacement ever since Clint Dempsey left that spot. Now, Dante Sealy is set to return to FC Dallas after loan with PSV Eindhoven. So apparently, PSV Eindhoven decided to not renew his loan or sign him outright, and I think it's about right because he kind of struggled during his time with PSV Eindhoven. I think he only scored like 6 goals in 54 appearances, and that's just clearly not good enough if you want to still be part one of the more well-known team in the Netherlands and in the Eredivisie. But yeah, knowing the fact that Dallas desperately need attacker, I mean, getting back Dante Sealy would definitely help that. I mean, I know recently Alan Velasco just came back from injury, but Par Oriola is still injured right now. So yeah, they need some attacking power, and bring back Dante Sealy will definitely be the case. And especially, I think he'll be more hungry knowing the fact that it didn't quite work out his first time in Europe. And I've said this before, when you make you jump to Europe and it didn't quite work out and you come back to MLS, it just makes you even more hungry to try to work harder so you can get another chance in Europe. And I think that's what Dante Sealy is hoping to be the case. Now, Lucho Acosta, there is a report that he's actually pursuing for U.S. citizenship, which will make him eligible to play for the U.S. men's national team. Now, this is very interesting because we haven't seen this happen a lot, where especially with Argentine player coming into the league, decide to pursue for a U.S. citizenship so he can be eligible to play for the U.S. men's national team. And I think if this of course is the case, this could be a big deal for the U.S. because I know going forward when you look on the attacking front, they should look pretty solid on the attacking front, but still I feel like they would it would not hurt if they could have the likes of Lucho Acosta in their roster too, especially with the way that Lucho Acosta are just playing probably the best that he have ever played in his career, probably even better than doing his time with DC United and part of that Lucha connection. So yeah, it should be interesting thing to see whether if this of course would work out, and especially the fact that if he does play for the national team, I think he could be slots in that second in kind of spot in terms of the depth chart of the number 10 position. Obviously, Gio Reyna still has that position locked in, but Lucho Acosta is definitely not a bad option in terms of trying to bring him off the bench, or maybe even play him in that role in lesser meaningful game that the U.S. of course are playing. Now, there's a report suggests that Charlotte FC is looking to sign Rangers midfielder Scott Arfield. Now, this news actually just came out a couple of hours ago, and this is an interesting one because Scott Arfield, he's kind of nearing his twilight of his career, and I'm also kind of surprised that TFC decided not to think about signing him because if Scott Arfield was going to come to MLS, Toronto will probably be the club that he could join, knowing that he is a Canadian national team player, well, former Canadian national team player that is. But it seems like Charlotte decided to sign him, and again, it's kind of a weird one because they've already have a decent midfield, and especially they just got Justin Miram, who I feel like him alongside with Scott Arfield are probably similar type of player nearing their 30s and trying to rejuvenate their career, and it seems like Justin Merrim is definitely doing that. So I'm pretty sure they're hoping that that's going to be the same case for Scott Arfield. But again, I feel like it's kind of weird how they when you look at the Charlotte team. I feel like the biggest need for this team is still on the defensive front because defensively they haven't been that good this season, and midfield I don't think is one of the thing that they need to worry about. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one, but if they can turn him to a similar kind of type of player that Justin Miram was when he came to Charlotte. It could be a decent signing, albeit only a short-term signing because he is in his mid-30s and he's just winding down his career. Now, moving on into the next news. So there's a source that's saying that Patrick Vieira is actually reported to be open with the U.S. men's national team job. Now, there's been a mixed reaction to this. There's some people that have said that it's a good idea because he's done well in terms of dealing with young kids, Patrick Vieira, especially during his short time with NYCFC. And then there are also some that said that this is not a good idea. I mean, when you look at during his time in Europe and coaching those teams like Nice and Crystal Palace, by the time when he got fired from the team looked much better. Once he of course left the team, so that could be a little bit of a concern if he is reported to be in this U.S. men's national team job. But again, overall, it's pretty clear that the U.S. Soccer Federation, they're no longer going to have that requirement where how there's that stupid requirement that they have. Well, actually, it's not a requirement, but it's an unwritten requirement that you got to speak English and you have to be American in terms of coaching this team. And it just doesn't seems like Patrick Vieira would have fit based on that old unwritten requirement. Though, again, it'll be interesting. Again, the U.S. is basically actively looking for many candidates to potentially fulfill this job, and that eventually I feel like right now this situation with the U.S. Soccer Federation looking for their next national team head coach is kind of similar to the DC situation. Remember how DC they had a boatload of candidate and they basically waited a couple of months before they finally decided to settle in Hearn Lasada, and that didn't quite turn out well. Well, the U.S. are just trying to avoid to do the same thing. And I also won't be surprised whether or not if they of course decided to maybe even rehire Greg Berhalter. Though again, there has been reports saying that looks like Berhalter is not going to be running for the job anymore, but instead he's actually going to be going down to Mexico and coach Club America. Which if that is actually going to be the case, I mean that would be one of the biggest plot twists in terms of a head coach taking the U.S. men's national team job, and now going down to Mexico and coaches arguably the biggest team and the most well known team, not only in Mexico but in the CONCACAF region. Now, finally moving on into the last news, Atlanta United has announced that they are set to release another dirt kit in August, and I already have the third kit that Atlanta United has had a couple of years ago, and I love that third kit, and I'm hoping that they're gonna make something similar to that. I mean, apparently they said that it's gonna be based on the city history, so I wonder if it has anything to do with the railroad industry because Atlanta is a big railroad town, and that I wouldn't be surprised if we can see something similar to that. But it should be interesting to see uh, how the third kit is going to look like, and I feel like other teams should do the same thing too. I feel like more teams should release third kits. Kind of weird that Atlanta United is still the only MLS team to release third kits, while other teams yearly just decide to rotate with their primary or a secondary kit that they have every single year. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the News of the Week episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these news, and if there's any news I didn't mention here on the board, let me know in the comments below as always. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.